Welcome back. We're talking about the effects that all this technology our kids are using these days really has on them. And you were just saying it is hard to kind of tell them, oh, time to turn it off. All of a sudden, one day, cold turkey, cut them off. So how do we kind of help kind of ease them into a better use of technology?
Well, there's a lot of things to consider in doing this. And actually, the American Academy of Pediatrics did publish some information on their website, which is incredibly useful. There's something called the Family Media Use Plan. And you can go on that and customize it for your family, for your child, because there's so many things to consider here. You have to consider the content. What is your child watching? For them, watching an educational program is very, very different than watching a cartoon where they're not really being active with that. So we like interactive apps, programs, things like that. There's some shows, that evidence to show that there's programs when they talk to the children, like, hey, how are you today? That there's actually more learning happening in those programs than when everything is, put together in sequence for children. So it's important to look at the content. You want to be a good media mentor for your child too. So there's a lot of parents that report that they themselves are addicted to their devices. So to be a good mentor ourselves is also a really important factor, because if we're telling our children no devices at the dinner table, but we have our laptop open or our phone, that's not so good, right? Working on this parent-child interaction in using media is also important. A lot of times children don't know. If you've gone a ways and you're like, oh boy, it's too late for us. It's not too late. There is some research to show that if your child has been watching violent programming, cartoons, that by showing them some good content programs, you can decrease some of those emotional and behavioral problems. So it is good to be aware of that.
So the media planning thing you talked about, if I go online and go through that, what is it going to show me?
If you go for the go to the American Academy of Pediatrics Family Media Use Plan, you can Google it, it'll come up. And it's really interesting because you can look at what your family's activities are, and you can develop like a time calculator. It was interesting when I did it. I was like, okay, I want Fiona spending this much time, reading. I want her this much time doing outdoor activities, and it came out to be 0 media time. So then I had to go back through and adjust a little bit more. But realistically, looking at what your family, what's involved with your family, there is some evidence to show that children who have a more difficult temperament might be exposed to media a little bit more frequently, just because they can be a little harder to parent. But that furthers the problems that they have. So being interactive with your child on media, to sit with them. My daughter, who's very high-spirited, we do videos together. She loves to use technology. She's really good at it. So, but I try to be interactive with her. If she's doing Lego World, commenting on, wow, that's amazing what you just built. That's a different use of media, and one that doesn't have as many negative consequences to it.
Does she have her own YouTube channel?
She sometimes goes on YouTube, and we have to be really careful.
Does
she have her own?
Yeah. I'm just playing.
She doesn't have her own, but that would be pretty interesting. So it is important to sit with your child, look at the content. And we all know this, but I'm a psychologist, but I'm also a parent. I know how difficult this can be, and to limit that time can be hard. So in the beginning, if you're having a hard time limiting the time, then at least try to modify the content.
Right.
And that can be a good way to kind of decrease some of these behaviors. Sit with them. Use it as parent-child interaction time. That can have a really positive impact.
And you got to be conscious. I mean, we'll be watching like a Disney, cartoon or whatnot, or movie, and then all of a sudden the ads in between are not always easy for a young person to see. So it's
absolutely,
you got to really watch what's going on.
Yeah, to be there, to be able to discuss things that happen, that makes a big difference too, especially as they become teenagers and encounter things that they may have questions about. So there's a large number of teens that are exposed to sexting. So between 40 and 60% have sent pictures, and 70 to 80% have received pictures. You have to be able to have an open dialogue with your children to talk about these things if they've happened, so that they feel like they can go to you.
Yeah. Good stuff, Doc. As always, we appreciate it.
Thanks.
What's your website again?
lakesidecenter.org.
Thank you very much.
You
All
bet.
right, stay with us. Much more coming up right here on North Dakota Today.